pleasure and honor to be here with you today. Thank you so much for your kind invitation and for sharing this moment together. And also thank you so much for your very detailed presentation and introduction about myself and my experiences. So for today, I prepared a few slides, mostly to guide us through the topic. So I'll try now to present them, sharing my screen. Just 1 second. Right. Share. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it was.
Okay, great. Then I'll continue. So indeed, as Vayanti said, today's discussion will focus on youth participation in climate decision making for a just transition. Just quickly about myself, but the introduction was quite detailed. Indeed, I work as sustainable finance and climate policy consultant at ICF in Brussels, supporting different units of the European Commission on the implementation of the European Green Deal. At the same time, over the years, I have always had a strong passion for environmental protection and acting for the climate. So while I was studying, I have as an environmental engineer in Italy and in Stockholm. I also dedicated myself to NGOs and students clubs to try to raise awareness on environmental protection and climate action. This also brought me to different experiences, also in Stockholm, where I studied, and then later in Brussels, where I moved for an internship at the European Parliament. And since I was in Brussels, I also decided to join an NGO called the Italian Climate Network, thanks to which I had the possibility to start to follow the climate negotiation closely, and also getting more into the climate decision-making processes at the international level. Since then, my involvement in climate policy became broader. So in 2022, I was the head of the Italian delegation at the G7 Youth Summit, which I'll also talk about later. And I was also Youth4Climate delegate in New York and in Rome this year. And also involved in various meetings where I represented the youth voices at the international level, as well as national level with ministers and decision makers. So after this, today, well, you heard the topic, but I introduced myself. I'll just go quickly through what a just transition is, but I'm sure you all already talk a lot about this topic in the previous talk. And then I'll be focusing mostly on the topic of youth in decision making. So how and what are the pillars of a good involvement of youth when it comes to the decision that regards our future? And I say our because I feel like we're probably a young audience. And also I'll bring some examples that I've saw and that I've been part of at different levels. So starting from the very definition of just transition, according to the International Labour Organization, the just transition is defined as greening the economy in a way that is as fair and inclusive as possible to everyone concerned, creating decent work opportunities and leaving no one behind. And I really want to focus on this aspect of leaving no one behind, because when we speak about transitioning, we often focus on transitioning from fossil fuels. We often focus on the energy transition, but the transition we are living now is, I think, should not only be about energy. It actually regards many other aspects, although energy is actually the main concern, as it will be key to solve the climate crisis, because thanks to changing and transitioning the energy system, we will reduce greatly our emissions. So the aspect of leaving no one behind is very important. When we talk about transitions, we should not focus on only thinking about technological transitions, as it often happens, especially talking about energy. But we should really consider the people. And indeed, this sentence, this keyword really wants to flag this, that transition should be people-centered, because otherwise, if we focus on other aspects, then we may realize that we are lacking behind on very important basic aspects. So this picture is actually taken from the Italy Arena IACT toolkit. As introduced at the beginning, I am a Italy Arena IACT peer educator. This program was supported by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, and then was developed by the International Renewable Energy Agency in cooperation and collaboration with youth constituencies, as well as SDG 7 Youth and UNICEF. So thanks to this program, IRENA selected a cohort of peer educators, around 2 per countries, and I'm one of them. And since then, we have been trained on climate and energy topics. Indeed, IAC stands for Italy Arena Action for Climate Toolkit. And so this is where the pictures come from. But this is to flag that transitions can be seen through different lenses, and should be inclusive. Indeed, we could see a just transition through the energy poverty and access lens. We could see through the women's right lens. We could see through the energy justice lens, etc., as you see in this picture. And one important part is that we could also see through the intergenerational equity lens. But what is intergenerational equity? According to the UN, the principle of intergenerational equity is to promote prosperity and quality of life for all. And according to them, the institutions should construct administrative acts that balance the short-term needs of today's generation with the long-term needs of future generation. So it means that people living today should have the same rights and same opportunities of the people living in the future. Talking about equity, I think it's important to clarify the differences between inequality, equality, equity, and justice. In fact, these terms may sound a bit similar, but they have a very different meaning. And I think I really like these pictures from the toolkit, because I think it captures very well their meaning. So starting with inequity. Inequity is when someone gets more than they need, whereas others get less, leading to an unfair distribution of resources. Equality, the second one, assumes that everyone needs the same treatment, regardless of their different starting point. And indeed, you see there is a table for each flower, meaning everyone needs the same treatment. The third icon is about equity. Equity is when everyone gets the additional treatment or support they need to make sure the outcome is the same for all. So all flowers can get the sun above the rock. And then finally, there is justice. And justice is when the barriers are removed and the actual cause of inequity is dealt with. So let's say everyone with justice, everyone gets his fair sort of piece of cake. So talking about justice and just transition, I think it's an intergenerational equity. I think it's very important to talk about youth engagement when we speak about intergenerational equity. Indeed, to ensure that future generation gets the same rights and opportunities of our current generation. We need to also make sure the youth are part of the decision and that are taken today and are included in the discussions that regard our future. So this, I don't know how many of you have seen this ladder. And maybe if someone has seen, I'd be curious, and maybe you can just raise your hands. I won't call you in, but I'm just curious to know if anyone has seen it before. So please raise your hand with the button if you have seen it before. I don't see any hands raised. Okay. So indeed, when I first saw it, it was I think a year ago, and I had never seen it before, and I find it quite interesting and meaningful because it really speaks about how youth and how youth can be included and the different levels. So in this letter, there are around 8 levels. And you can see the first 3 are about are a first attempt to include youth. And this goes sometimes by manipulation or by decoration, they call it. Meaning maybe sometimes youth are invited to some events or to be part of some, I don't know, advisory board, but then their voice is not really taken into account. The third step that you might have heard a lot is about tokenism. Tokenism is I would call it a bit of like youth washing or greenwashing, and this is the same for youth. So when youth are just invited to really just tick the box of having a youth in the discussion. But the more advanced level are when yes, youth are invited in the discussions that regards maybe their future in taking some decision, but they are consulted, they are informed throughout the process. So it's not just one ad hoc standalone involvement. And then the top level is when youth are fully integrated in the discussion. And here it's mentioned child because this covers both child and youth. But the ideal step is when child and youth ideas are shared, are informed, and are taken into account by adults, and these are also discussed by adults. Talking about so this theory, I think it's also good to mention about real life. So what has happened so far about youth involvement. And here I would like to mention to you some milestones that were accomplished by the United Nations. And actually, I got this information because I was in New York for the UN SDGs summit just in September, which marked the midpoint towards the achievement of the 2030 agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so there was a session where it was really explained what has been done and what should be done to include more youth in decision making. So to mention some milestones, in 1992, so more than 30 years ago, youth were recognized as a social group sector of society and stakeholder in the UN processes related to sustainable development. This is a very important milestone because it means that actually youth have a role. Youth are part of a category, and youth are carrying some interest, are carrying some ideas, and so with this, let's say, title being a recognized stakeholder, it means that they should also be listened more. There have of course been other initiatives between 1992 and 2013. I won't go through all of them. I've just put here some milestones that I think were very fundamental. The next one is that in 2013, the Office of Secretary General's Envoy on Youth was established. In 2015, there was the Paris Agreement, we all know, and in the Paris Agreement, there is a clear sentence which brings in the intergenerational equity concept into the text. And in 2022, there was, just last year, there was a very important resolution at the United Nations level, because thanks to this resolution, they decided to establish the United Nations Youth Office. This is very, very important, because it means that there is a body, an official body, that can actually deal with all the opportunities in a and also with ensuring possibilities for youth in a more structured way. From as I said at the beginning, the agenda, I'll go from more. I'm bringing in different examples. So that's kind of the background of at the United Nations level. Then I would like to dive a bit into the UNFCCC processes, because as mentioned at the beginning, I've been part of the climate negotiations since COP26. I participated at the Conference of the Parties as an observer, as a civil society and youth representative. I think you may be familiar with COP, but the Conferences of the Parties is where more than 190 nations or parties comes together and try to agree on some on what's the way forward for climate actions at international level. So it's sort of to have a common agreement on all the aspects that regards climate decisions. Of course, the talk today is about youth, so I'll focus on this aspect of the Conference of the Parties. So starting from 2021 at COP26 in Glasgow, the presidency of the COP was the United Kingdom in partnership with Italy, and that's when the Youth4Climate was brought to life. Youth4Climate back then in 2021 brought together at the pre-COP in Milan more than 300 selected youth that together drafted a manifesto, including specific youth proposals regarding different areas of action. What's important here to flag is that in this case, youth were supported, meaning that they were fully funded to travel there. And this is very important because often what we see is that one of the main barrier to participation is the basic means. So having the financial possibility to participate at specific events. At COP26, these youth demands were then brought into the into the climate negotiation in front of ministers and other decision makers. COP27 last year in Sharm el-Sheikh also was a very important year for youth inclusion in these processes. Indeed, there was the first ever children and youth pavilion. This is a youth-led space where youth could have the possibility to organize conferences, events, fully decided by youth. Last year, it was also the first year that youth had this youth dialogue forum. So this was a more, let's say, a longer structured dialogue between youth and the presidency and specific climate negotiator, to really try to listen to youth in giving more space, because usually at climate negotiation processes, what happens is that youth have a space, have a right to talk, but this is only limited to, I don't know, a couple of minutes, and maybe just at the very end of the conversation or of the event. Another very important milestone is that COP27 had the first nominated the first climate youth envoy. This is, I think, very important because it ensured that there was a clear communication, well, a clearer communication between the presidency, the Egyptian presidency of the COP, and the groups representing youth. Indeed, overall, through all the COPs, youth have been represented as part of Yango, and I wrote it here, which is the official constituencies of youth, which tries to collect and bring together all youth associations, groups, and individuals to have a voice into the climate negotiations. What you may wonder, okay, but then why do we need a climate youth envoy if we already have Yango? I think this refers to the fact that having a climate youth envoy is somebody from the presidency, while Yango is a group from the civil society. So I think having a climate youth envoy ensured that there was a more direct dialogue, and also that in the final text of the climate negotiations, there was some clear and also many references to youth involvement in climate decision making, which also included, for example, in the Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan, which was the final decision of the climate negotiations. There was indeed a clear text on for parties to try to include more youth in the climate in the processes regarding climate action and climate decision, as well as trying to include more youth within the national delegations. But so what's happening this year? This year we will have COP28. This will be in the United Arab Emirates, and what's been exciting is that the presidency this year announced a youth climate champion. We can say it's a similar figure to the Climate Youth Envoy. But this time, the Youth Climate Champion has a full body and structure behind, which was not the case of the Climate Youth Envoy. And this is very important. Of course, being one person on being one team can make the real difference. And what was nice to see is also actually the focal point of Yango of COP27. Were actually included in the team of the Youth Climate Champion. So they really, it was nice to see that youth and people that have been part of these processes are now part of a more structured process, which has actually resources and capacity and also the power in a certain way to decide. This year, it was also nice to see, I was mentioning that one problem in many cases is this initial barrier that youth don't have the resources to maybe even go to an event and to make their voice heard. So it was nice to see here that the Youth Climate Champion team and COP28 this year launched some very nice programs to support even accommodation in the country and providing more badges to youth. So I think from this, what we can learn is, and I put it on the right, is that to make youth voices heard in this process in climate decisions, there is a need of structured processes that are long-term. There is a need of raise capacity, of capacity building, so that people have the training and knowledge necessary to have a meaningful voice in the discussion. And then there is a need of resources for participation. Now, another example that I've been part of is the G7 and G20 Youth Summit. So this is G7, G20 are these multilateral discussions where head of states meets and again tries to have a common agenda, not only on climate and environmental issues, but on different international priorities. And in 2022, I mentioned I was part of the Italian delegations. And I think what was interesting about this process is that it had three main steps. A first steps, which was the step of consultations. So when we talk about participation and inclusion of youth voices, it's also important that these voices are representative. And so the main step, the first step was consultation. So with the youth delegation, we were 4 delegates per each G7 or G20 country. We consulted different youth NGO, different individuals, and then we put together the ideas into some proposals. The second step was the step of negotiations. So we each delegate from each of the G7 or G20 countries came together and we negotiated about the text to include in our final communique, which, and this is when we gave the final communique to the Olaf Scholz, which was is the German Chancellor, and he was he had the presidency of the G7 in last year. And so there is this second step of negotiation to agree among different delegates on what priorities, what proposal should be kept in the final document that will be given to the presidency. And then the last step is the one of I call it advocacy. So after having created this document, okay, super nice as a educational experience to have consultation and to discuss among others, but what do we do? And so the next step was to try to disseminate more the priorities of youth by organizing bilateral meetings with institutional representative ministers, but also schools and locals. Another important initiative to flag that I've been part of last year and this year is the Youth4Climate, because I mentioned this in the, if you remember, in the COP processes. Because Youth4Climate has been this initiative to empower youth, and it started in 2021. Trying to, the minister back then used to say it was an initiative to transform protests into proposals. So to bring together people that let's say were protesting in the street and try to listen to what their demands were. Then in 2022, this initiative was initiated by the Minister of Environment. Well, back then it was the Minister of Ecological Transition of Italy. And last year it was in New York, and I was privileged or honored enough to be there as Italy delegate. And the second year was about powering action. So it was about having structure, conversation and dialogues to see what ideas from the manifesto developed in the first year, so the proposal developed in the first year, could become reality, and through conversation also with the high-level speakers, head of states, UN representatives. This year, from Power Action, it became the edition, the flagship event became Sparking Solution. And so this year, Youth4Climate, together with the United Nations Development Program, launched a call for solution back in spring. And thanks to this call of solution, groups of individual and also youth organizations could participate and submit their ideas to receive fundings in terms of grants. And thanks to the call of solution, more than 1,000 projects ideas were received, and in the end, 100 projects were shortlisted, and the lead of each project was invited in Rome just a few weeks ago. And the idea was to finally award the projects that they won this call for solutions, and also provide networking and training or capacity building opportunities for youth. And I was there actually moderating the awarding ceremony of the final event, where also the UNDP administrator took part, as well as the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs. So it's I think this their participation gives an idea of how important this topic is. This topic of youth empowerment is at international level. Worth flagging, Youth4Climate as a platform that is open to anybody. So I welcome you to join this platform. I think it's nice to check what's going on, share ideas. Maybe it would be nice to see and share your research. I'm almost coming to an end of my presentation, but just mentioning a few other initiatives. I talk about the multilateral level, going more at local and national level, what can be done. We have seen in many states now the creation of youth climate councils to include youth voices in decision regarding climate. We have also seen the inclusion of youth in the delegation, taking part at different summits. And another option is the introduction of youth quota into local and national councils or parliaments. The last slides is then just to sum up what do we need to make youth participation in climate decision making real. To sum up the points raised before, we need long-term structure process so that we don't fall in tokenism or the one standalone or one-shot participation into an event. We need resources, and this both in terms of capacity building, so that youth have the knowledge to really have a meaningful say in the process they are part of, and also in terms of financial resources, so that youth can be actors of different processes. And then wherever we have these structured processes, we need, of course, monitoring and verification to really check that the idea raised by youth are really implemented and they are not just part maybe of a document and that will be forgotten forever. So of course, then every context is different and needs to be assessed. So there is no one solution fit for all. But there are ideas, and I think, yeah, these are what I mentioned today are ways to try to implement the intergenerational equity principle, so the youth can be part of their future and actually their present too, and yeah, and they can be part of all the decision that regards their future. And thank you for your time, for being here. And if you have any questions, I think there is some time now, but also if, in case you want, you can reach out to me through different channels later on, and I'd be happy to answer to any questions or also discuss about your ideas or your experience on these topics.